Villages and towns. The change from village or rural life to city or urban life is called urbanization. India witnessed urbanization around 2500 BCE with the growth of the Indus Valley civilization. People started learning settled life, which resulted in the production of surplus crops and in the emergence of activities other than farming. But this first urbanization in India abruptly came to an end as these cities declined around 1500 BCE. The sudden end of the civilization is attributed to excessive floods, earthquakes, and invasion of other tribes. New cities, second urbanization, came up in India in the later Vedic period around 600 BCE when iron began to be used. Iron axes helped in clearing the forests more easily, and more land could now be brought under cultivation. The new settlements started in the Sapta Sindhu region and continued expanding towards Ganga-Yamuna rivers. It further developed towards East Uttar Pradesh, Bengal, Bihar, and into the Deccan. Our knowledge about these cities has been drawn mainly from archaeological remains discovered at the sites of the cities and from Buddhist literary works. We get information about the South Indian cities mainly from Sangam Literature. Sangam Literature is the composition from Tamil representations made by scholars and poets at 3 assemblies held at Madurai under royal patronage. Features. As the urbanization grew, trading activities also increased, which brought prosperity to the people. The prosperous middle class started migrating to new areas, forming new settlements. Many towns are mentioned in Pali and Sanskrit like Shravasti, Kaushambhi, Pataliputra, Ayodhya, Varanasi, Rajgriha, etc. This period is marked by the use of northern black polished ware, NBP, iron tools and implements, burnt bricks, and metal money. Agriculture expanded because of use of better tools and improved methods of irrigation. Ring wells were also in use, which are rows of pots of ceramic rings placed one on top of the other. They were used as toilets or as drain pipes or garbage bins. Agriculture. Most of the people living in villages were engaged in agriculture. Farmers belonged to 3 major categories. They were very rich landowners, the small landowners, and the landless laborers. In South India, landowners were called Vellalars. In North India, rich Grihapati owned most of the land. There were also small cultivators called Krishakas in North India and Uyavar in South India. The landless labourers worked on others' land. Such a labourer was called Kadesiyar or Adimai in South India and Karmakara or Dasa in North India. Most villages had a headman. He was called Gramabhojaka. His poet was hereditary and he also performed the duties of a policeman and a legal judge. Usually, he was the largest landowner of the village. He had many slaves and workers to cultivate his vast land. On behalf of the king, he collected taxes from the people in the village. The beginning of agriculture can be traced back to Neolithic age when farmers used crude stone tools and small microliths. Later, when the Bronze Age came into being, the tools were made of alloys of bronze and copper. Early man with metallic tools enhanced agriculture in a remarkable way. The massive granaries built during Harappan times are a proof of this development as the surplus food grains had to be stocked. Agriculture was further boosted in the period between 1500 to 600 BCE when use of iron started extensively. Stronger and heavier tools were made. The fertility of Ganga Valley invited more settlements and encouraged the people to enhance this fertility more by ploughing and tilling the land. This improved agricultural technique led to the discovery of new food grains such as rice, in addition to wheat, barley, and pulses. Initially, the farmers were totally dependent on the rains for irrigation. Rain failure in some seasons forced them to think of other methods of irrigating the fields. Gradually, canals, wells, tanks, and artificial lakes were constructed to be used in irrigation. Growth of crafts. Buddhist texts mention a large number of specialized craftsmen such as carpenters, goldsmiths, ivory workers, stone workers, jewelers, weavers, etc. Archaeological excavations at the sites of early towns have revealed various things made by the craftsmen. These include iron tools, coins, burnt bricks, sculptures, and potteries. Potteries are mud vessels used by the people in the villages. One such type of mud vessels are called black and red ware. These vessels are black on one side and red on other. Another important type of pottery is the Northern Black Polished Ware, NBP. It is black in color and exhibits a very fine polish. It was first produced in the Ganga Valley and was extensively used throughout the Mauryan Empire. Guilds. Craftsmen of a particular kind often settle together in places close to sources of raw materials or near trade routes or markets. People belonging to a particular craft or trade often form themselves into an association or guild or shreni. They can be compared to trade unions of modern times. The guild helped its members in procuring raw materials and in marketing or selling the goods produced by the craftsmen. Some shrenis also worked as banks where wealthy people invested, and this money was used to provide loans to traders and craftsmen. Towns. The towns and cities grew due to the patronage by the kings and traders. In ancient India, there were different categories of towns. Capital cities such as Madurai, Patliputra, Ujjain, and Shravasti are significant as they were also important commercial centers. Some towns such as Bodh Gaya, Ayodhya, Mathura grew around pilgrimage centers. Sometimes towns specialized in one particular craft. Kashi, Varanasi, and Madurai were known for textile industry. Nagarjunkonda, Amravati, and Kondapur emerged as important towns as they lay on important trade routes. They solely developed on account of their location on the routes linking the ports of Southeast India with Western Deccan. Some of them, located on the banks of rivers, served as inland ports. The town of Madurai was important as it was not only situated on an important trade route but also was a center of administration and art. It was also a center of religious worship. Growth of trade. Trade was promoted by the rulers as it fetched revenue to state treasury. They introduced standard weights and measures, supervised the quality of goods, produced and controlled mines, shipbuilding, salt, and wine. Foreign trade was carried on by land and sea. South India had overseas trade with Arabia and Roman Empire in the west and with Southeast Asia in the east. We get information about this trade mainly from Sangam Literature. A Roman navigator named Hippalus used his knowledge of the monsoon winds to chart a straighter sea route to India. This led to a huge expansion of trade between India and Rome. South Indian ports of Puhar, Kaveripatnam, Arikamedu, and Korkai flourished into important trading ports. Indian silk, muslin, pearls, precious stones, spices, ivory goods were in great demand in foreign markets. These were traded for Roman gold and silver coins and wine. Large number of Roman coins have been unearthed in ports and inland towns of South India. Indian silk and spices were specially popular on the Silk Route, which linked India to West and Central Asia and China through land. Trivia. Northern black polished ware occurs in a larger area other than other ceramic in India. This wide distribution has been ascribed to Mauryan imperialism, the propagation of Buddhism, and to trade routes. The first phase of this kind of pottery spans the 700 BCE to 400 BCE period and the late phase 400 BCE to 100 BCE and even later. Coinage. Initially, the barter system or exchange of goods was in practice in trade, but it was not easy to buy or sell goods through barter. Contacts with the Persians and Greeks possibly led to the introduction of coinage in India. The early coins were crude pieces of silver and copper. They had designs punched on them and hence called punch-marked coins. Unmarked copper coins and punch-marked silver, copper and bronze coins came into use around 6th century BCE. The Arthashastra mentions coins of different values and special officers in charge of coinage. Arikameru, a case study. Situated in the south of Pondicherry, Arikameru emerged as an important sports city under the Cholas, a powerful South Indian dynasty. Between 2200 and 1900 years ago, Arikameru was a coastal settlement where ships unloaded goods from distant lands. A massive brick structure, which may have been a warehouse, was found at the site. It mostly carried trade with Rome and other countries of Mediterranean region. Fine textiles from the Chola kingdom were an important item of export, along with semi-precious stones, shell bangles, beads and glass. The items of import included Roman gold and silver glassware, wine, olive oil, gums, lamps, etc. Wine and olive oil were transported to India in double-handled jars known as amphorae. Remains of amphorae and a kind of glazed red Italian pottery called aretine have also been found at Arikameru. Many samples of Indian pottery found at Arikameru have designs resembling Roman designs. Small tanks have also been found that were probably dye pits used to dye cloth.